Thank you, Bo. Like you said, I've been involved in infectious disease control for a long time. This is the 5th pandemic during my professional career. It started with AIDS, and now this is probably the last one. I don't know how much I should go into the details about Sweden. You showed some interesting graphs already, but we've had a rather soft attitude in this country to the control of the pandemic, doing more by asking people to behave than by writing ordinances and laws and policing. The effect is quite similar to other countries, though. If you go out on the central Stockholm at 9 o'clock a Saturday evening, you'll be quite alone because people are isolating themselves in their own homes. They do it because they understand why they should do it, to protect themselves and to protect other people.
Great. Let me ask you one quick follow-up. So one policy measure that seems a little bit different compared to neighboring countries is that the schools for younger kids and kindergartens were not closed. I understand that maybe Denmark and Norway are also trying to reopen, but initially a lot of other countries closed all schools and all childcare.
Yeah, that has been closed all over. Finland actually had the lower grades 1, 2, 3 open all the time, because the problem was they had this idea that people who had critical professions that were needed in society, that their children should go to school or to kindergarten. But there was such a long discussion in Finland about who has a society critical profession, so they decided to let it drop for the younger children. And like you said, all the Nordic countries are opening their schools. One, I think was Denmark, did it yesterday, and 2 others are doing it on Monday next week. Well, closing, a big problem, especially for Sweden, where almost everyone is working outside the home. It would be different in a country with a lot of housewives or house husbands. There are 1 million children between ages 0 and 10 in Sweden, and they need someone to look after them. If you close the kindergartens and you close the schools, someone has to be home and take care of them, and you would lose about 400,000 people in the workforce, many of them working in the healthcare sector. I have a friend who is a nurse, head of an emergency department, and she says she wakes up every morning praying that the government won't close down the schools, because then she loses half her workforce immediately. Can I say something about the deaths, since Anna brought them up? 2 things. One is that the countries that are opening up slowly now will have their deaths that Sweden already had. When the virus starts spreading a bit more than it has now, the people that, if they had been Swedes, they would be dead now, but they will die in the future. That's one. The other is that statistics and public statistics is a very difficult area. And we were wondering, I was actually a radio journalist who found out, why does Belgium has twice as many deaths as the Netherlands, which is what they publish. Well, that's because Belgium counts cases from old people's homes, institutions where old people live, whereas Netherlands does not. Italy only counts cases that come into hospital and die, not the ones that die outside the hospital. There are problems with the US figures as well. So statistics is a difficult area. Did that answer your question, or did I talk about the wrong things?
This is excellent. Yeah, it happens in economics too, actually, that we have a hard time with statistics. So all the economists and finance people will recognize the issues. Here's something I'm curious about. What does exit look like? And I would like to hear all the panelists talk about this, or I mean, we're not going back to normal, but we're going to go back to more normal. Maybe Johan, can you say something about how do we get out of this medically? Are we waiting for the vaccine? Are we waiting for this herd immunity that people talk about? Or are we waiting for treatment options? Or how do we
get out of this?
Yeah.
I must say I've been laughing, and not laughing, but inwardly when I see the other countries in Europe putting up all these restrictions, and I've been asking myself, how are they going to climb down from this? Has anyone thought about the exit strategy before they introduced the rather strict measures? And I think very few politicians across this continent have done that. I remember the first one I asked was, I asked Norway, when are you going to open your schools again? What would be the criterion to do that? And I'm not sure they even know now that they're doing it. But I think what will happen is that you need to take one restriction at a time. And I think that's the way it will be in a month or so from now. You start by scrapping one restriction, and then you wait for 1-2 weeks to see what happens with the spread of the virus. If it's okay, if it doesn't increase, then you take another restriction and you get rid of that one. Just like is happening now in many, Austria is opening small shops to people. The schools in our Nordic countries are opening again. So gradually everyone is approaching the Swedish model. And I think that's the way we will get out of this. But waiting for the vaccine is unreal. And are we going to keep the old people locked up until the vaccine comes around another 1 or 2 years from now? Not locked up, but self-isolating in their homes. That won't be possible. It won't be possible in a democracy to keep the measures we have right now very long. You could do it in China. You can't do it in Europe.
Antibody tests.
No, it's happening as we speak. And it will answer a lot of questions. If we get a proper, we already have the tests to say that people have had the disease, they're well now. Most of them won't even know that they had it. The tests are being employed as we speak in across the population, and also for special groups as healthcare workers and so on, to find out if they're immune to this disease. And it may be, there are indications that this figure, people who have had it, is far, far higher than any of us has even guessed so far. But anyway, like you say, and that will answer our questions, how common is it to have the disease without being aware of it, that it was so mild that you didn't even notice? How common is that? We have this, how long are you immune for? Because it won't be lifelong, that we know. Yeah. But it will really answer a lot of very important questions in a few weeks' time.
If it's not lifelong, what are the possibilities medically? Do you have some sense?
Probably about a year.
Johan, what do you think about drawing conclusions and learning lessons at this stage?
I don't think we'll learn. We never have before. No, I'm serious. I think 30 years from now, this will be completely forgotten. On the medical side, on the public health side, and on the economical side. No one will even remember. I